Hello, lovelies. As I got super carried away just doing exam questions on the last video, this one starts at question 12. So this will be question 12 to 20. A balloon is filled with helium. Helium is a noble gas, makes the balloon rise up in the air. The density of air is 1.3 grams per decimeter cubed. Which gas is helium? So definitely it's not A, because it doesn't burn rapidly. In fact, it does not react with oxygen at all. Now we have to look at a gas that has a lower density than 1.23. So this one has a higher density, this one has a higher density, so the answer has to be B. The properties of the element titanium can be predicted from its position on the periodic table. Which row identifies the properties of titanium? Well, titanium is a transition metal, so it can be used as a catalyst. D is out. So now we're only looking at these top three, A, B, and C. Does it conduct electricity when solid? Well, yes, it's a metal, so it's not C. It has a low density. Titanium has a high density because it is a transition metal, so it can't be B. Does it form coloured compounds? Yes. Oh, hang on. Oh, Mrs. Baker, you're silly. So it has a low density. It's saying X. Yes, it doesn't have a low density. This is a backwards one. Has a low density? No. So it must be this one. And it forms coloured compounds? Yes. If we'd have ticked the tick for that one, we are saying yes, it does have a low density. So go away, A. It must be B. See how easy it is to make a mistake if you don't fully check your answer through. If we'd have just skipped on to the next because we were shortcutting and we were in an exam, then we would have got that question wrong, or I would have got that question wrong. The fact that I checked the last column meant that I was able to pick up on my own mistake. That's why it's super important to check as you go through, or if you don't check as you go through, to always go back and double check. 14. The elements in group 1 include lithium, sodium, and potassium. Which statements about these elements are correct? Sodium is denser than lithium. Well, as you go down the group, density increases, and it goes lithium, sodium, potassium. So sodium is denser than lithium, yes. Lithium has a lower melting point than potassium. Well, as you go down the group, the melting point decreases. So lithium has a lower melting point than potassium. No, it doesn't. Potassium has a lower melting point than lithium. Potassium is a relatively soft metal. Well, yes, they're all relatively soft metals. Sodium is less reactive than lithium, but more reactive than potassium. No, definitely not. Potassium is the most reactive out of those three, so no. So the answers are 1 and 3. B. Which statement about the group 1 and the group 7 elements is correct? Group 7 elements are monatomic nonmetals. No, they are diatomic. Silly. Lithium is more reactive than with water than cesium. No, cesium is way more reactive than lithium. The melting points of the group 1 metals increase down the group. No, they decrease going down the group. Potassium bromide reacts with chlorine to produce an orange solution. Yes, the bromide is displaced and it makes bromine. And bromine is a reddy orange brown. So we'll go yes, that one. A group 1 metal, lithium, sodium, or potassium, is reacted with a group 7 element, chlorine, bromine, or iodine. Which compound is formed when the group 1 metal of the highest density reacts with the group 7 of the lowest density? Well, in both cases, density increases as you go down the group. So the group 1 metal of the highest density means the lowest in the table, and the lowest density of the group 7s means the highest in the table. So lithium and chlorine. So lithium and potassium. So let's rule out the first non-metal. Is it lithium or potassium? Well, group 1 metal, we need the one lowest down. So it's not going to be lithium. Now, so it's potassium something. Now the group 7 element of the lowest density. Well, that's going to be the one highest in the periodic table. Chlorine is higher than iodine, so the answer must be B. 17. Iron reacts with dilute hydrochloric acid to form iron 2 chloride, and iron reacts with chlorine to form iron 3 chloride. Which property of the transition element is being shown? Is it that it has high melting points? Well, no, they do, but it's not being shown here. Transition elements can act as catalysts. Again, not being shown here. It's true, but they're not being shown here. Transition elements have variable oxidation states. Yes, 2 and 3 for iron. Transition elements have coloured compounds. Well, yes, but it didn't tell us the colour here, so that's not true either. So the answer must be C. So 18, iron 2 ions can be oxidized to iron 3 ions by hydrogen peroxide. Don't worry if you don't know what hydrogen peroxide is. In fact, hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. Reminds me of a good chemistry joke. A chemist walks into a bar and says to the barman, "I'll have a pint of H2O, please." So the barman goes and gets him a pint of water. The man sitting next to him is not a chemist, and he's really thirsty. And he says, "I'll have a pint of H2O too." He dies. He had a pint of hydrogen peroxide, H2O2. Hey-oh. Oh, it's a funny chemistry joke. I made myself laugh. Okay. Which statement, let's get back to the chemistry, Mrs. Baker. Goodness me. Which statement explains why iron is a transition element? Is it that iron is a transition element because it can be oxidized? Lots of things can be oxidized. Is iron a transition element because it has variable oxidation states? Yep. Is iron a transition element because it takes part in redox reactions? No, lots of things do that. Is iron a transition element because it reacts with chlorine? No, sodium reacts with chlorine, and it's not a transition element. Okay, 19. Which pair of compounds shows that transition elements have variable oxidation states? So for this, we just have to work it out, just like we did in question 1. So we've got 2 chromiums bonded with 3 oxygens, and we've got 1 chromium bonded with 3 bromines. So bromine is -1, -1, -1, always, because it's in group 7, so it always receives 1. Can't have variable oxidation states, it's fixed. So that's -3 overall. So this one must even out the charge as being +3. Here we've got 3 lots of oxygens. So we've got -2, -2, -2. And so that altogether makes -6. But we've got 2 chromiums, so we do +6 divided by the 2 chromiums is +3 each. So +3 and +3, it ain't A. Copper sulfate is 1 copper bonded with a sulfate. Sulfate is always -2. Copper, therefore, must be +2 in this case. And here you've got copper bonded with 2 chlorines, so -1, -1. So again, this one must be +2. So it's not this one. Here you've got Fe2O3, and you've got FeCl2, while chlorine is a halogen again, so it's -2. Oxygen is -2, -2, -2, gives you -6. So in this case, you've got 1 oxygen, which must be a +2 ion. And here, you've got +6, but it's divided by 2 of the ions, so it must be +3 each. So you've got iron 2 over here, iron 3 over here. The answer must be this iron one. We can rule out the other one. Nickel bonded with an oxygen and nickel bonded with 2 chlorines. Well, of course, -1, -1 for the halogens gives you -2 overall. So this nickel is worth +2. So it's got to even up. And then -2 over here, this one must be +2. So it's not this one. So we've gone through all 4. In the exam, you wouldn't waste your time and go through all 4. Once you'd found your answer that worked, you would probably just leave D. And then if you had time, you'd come back and check it. Okay, last one for this video. Which pair of elements reacts together most violently? So we're talking the metal at the top of the group. So is it lithium, potassium? Potassium is the metal that's furthest down the group, so it's the most reactive. So we can cross out the 2 lithium ones, and then chlorine versus iodine, which is the most reactive? Well, it's chlorine, so it's not this one. It must be this one. Process of elimination. Okay, we've got up to question 20, and we haven't quite lost the will to live yet. Woohoo!